This radio training series is brought to you by the Department of Health and Hospitals, Center for Community Preparedness. Welcome to Part 2 of the 700 MHz Radio Training Series. In Part 1, we completed a basic overview of both the Motorola and E.F. Johnson radios. In this segment, we will go in-depth to cover zones, channels, the fleet map, and interoperability. These topics are very important to understanding the functionality of your radio. Also, these topics have been selected with the input and assistance of our OPH Public Health Emergency Response Coordinators. As we have 2 more segments to complete in our radio training series, your feedback is encouraged. If there's areas of radio operability that you would like to see covered, please let me know. The remainder of this training will be provided by our Region 5 OPH Public Health Emergency Response Coordinator, Mr. Mike Parent.
Throughout this training, we will be referring to terms such as fleet maps, zones, channels, interoperability, and ICALL. In the following slide, you will see a diagram of the current fleet map. It depicts the designation of all program zones and channels. This will be discussed in depth throughout this training. Please keep in mind that this is a reference tool to help you locate certain channels on your radio. A fleet map is basically a footprint of what is in your radio. As we will talk in later segments, we have zones and then we have channels within those zones. The fleet map shows everything together and is a reference guide for you to use. I would suggest that you print this out for later use in case of an emergency. Zones. Each zone contains 16 channels. The first zone in your radio will be your OPH zone, which has all 9 regions as well as headquarters, 3 special event channels, an EOC channel, and the RSS channel. Channels. Again, there are 16 channels per zone, and again, OPH would be your first zone. On the top of your radio, you'll find a button with 16 positions on it. Each position stands for the channel. In other words, position 1 would be channel 1, which should display on your radio OPH region 1. On down to channel 15, which should be OPH RSS. Again, I want to remind you that even though zones have 16 positions, they may not have anywhere from 1 to 16 channels in them. In two-way radio, interoperability is composed of 3 dimensions: compatible communication paths, compatible frequencies, equipment and signaling, radio system coverage or adequate signal strength, scalable capacity. In the previous slide, I gave you the book definition of interoperability. Simply put, interoperability was designed to be able to let agencies talk across the board. In other words, not all agencies have the same radio channels in their radios, but with the addition of the interoperability, which are in these zones, which we'll go over, we now have the capability to talk to one another. Let's start with Zone 5. This zone is monitored by GOSEP, which is the Governor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness. In order to use a channel on that zone, you must get permission from GOSEP to use that channel. Zones 6, 7, and 8, which are cord call and cord talk, are all monitored by the state police. Again, they're for regions 1 through 9, and permission must be given by the state police in order to use these channels. Zone 9, which is in everyone's radio as well, is iCall channels. This channel is monitored by the 911 in the different areas. Anytime you want to use an iCall channel, you need to contact the local 911 center by radio and ask them to use that channel. Another good way that iCall can be used is if you're traveling in your vehicle and you come upon an accident and there's no responders there at the time, you can pick up your radio, put it on iCall, and call that local 911 center, and they can dispatch out the responders from there.
Thank you for participating in Part 2 of the radio training series. In this segment, we covered zones, channels, interoperability, and iCall. FEMA offers more material on interoperability. The NIMS 700 course offered by FEMA covers integrated communications. This can be accessed at FEMA.gov. If you need more assistance with information that was provided in this training, you may contact Rebecca Harris or Mike Parent via the contact information displayed. Thank you.